Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best of the best to help you scale your business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today's guest is Luca, the CEO of Qumata. Luca, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mike, for having me. It's great to be here, and thanks for the invite.
Really a pleasure, and I'm really excited because it will be a very nice episode with fresh topics and amazing insights about your journey scaling up Qumata until now. So, but before, let's start to get to know more about you. So, who is Luca? How has been your journey? And let's know also more about the company.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, of course. So my name is Luca. I'm based between London and Asia, and I'm also the CEO and co-founder of Qumata Group. So we started Qumata now 4.5, coming up to 5 years ago, together with my co-founder Etienne. And what we basically do in one or two sentences is we predict when and how someone is going to die based on their lifestyle factors such as steps data, wearable information, other data. And then we help insurance companies to use that data to basically price their policies more accurately, allowing their applicants to get a smoother onboarding journey with less friction in the purchasing process. So basically, if you're a potential, if you're interested in buying an insurance policy and you want to buy it with one of our customers, usually you would have to go fill out questionnaires, potentially have to do a medical exam, lot of pain, right? So what we can do is we can allow that customer to share their data if they want to, and then basically make it a much more quicker process as well as a more accurate process for the insurer.
That's really interesting, and I would say life-changing and disruptive for the industry, right?
Absolutely, and it's quite interesting to see also like where specifically it has the most impact and the first impact. So we're quite heavily focused on the UK and Asia Pacific. As well. I mean, we have some clients in the US as well, but that's really where we focus most of our energy on, which is quite an interesting topic in itself around where some of these innovations scale up in the first place.
Right. This is a great topic because we discuss here, especially entrepreneurs that are based in the UK, in Europe in general, the leap about expanding throughout Europe, and we all know about the complexity of expanding across Europe because it always seems only Europe, but different languages, different regulations, etc., and then the ones who try to go very quickly into the US to scale up their business there. And we all talk about the right timing to do the leap, what is the investment needed, the resources needed to do that leap. But very few times we discuss scaling up from the UK into the Asia Pacific region. So why APAC, and what has been some of your lessons doing this expansion into the APAC region?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I definitely, I actually want to sort of split this discussion into two parts. The first one is around the first point you make, which is I think that a lot of scale up sort of look west when they expand, right? They go to the US, potentially to Western Europe if they start in the UK, or the other way around, go from Europe into the US or in the UK, or even from the US into Europe and the UK. I think the first thing is to say it really depends, right, on the scale up that you're running. For us, it's not, well, I do love Asia next to working there, but it wasn't because of my love for Asia that we went into Asia. It just happened to be that we got most traction on it. And that's the second part I want to talk about, why we specifically found that traction in Asia. But I think it's very important to say that each business is unique, right? And if you're running a B2C business, for example, maybe international expansion is not the thing that you want to look at as a first step, right? If you're looking to target a particular audience with a marketing message, probably makes sense to focus on one domestic market, build up that brand, build up your revenue from that market, and then go into one other market, right? Whereas for us, because we work with large multinational insurance groups that sort of say, okay, today you have to be in Vietnam, tomorrow you have to be in Singapore, it just sort of suited our business, but it is all demand driven. It's never sort of like, I want to do it driven. It's really demand driven. And that's one of the key things, especially in a scale up. I think when you do international expansion, it should be really demand driven, that expansion. And that really brings me to the second point of your question, which is around why Asia for us as Qumata. And you rightfully point out that there's not that many startups or scale-ups that start in the UK and then sort of grow into Asia. I think for us, it was because of the client demand. So I remember when I started out in 2017, I was basically, my strategy was, I knew we were going to have to target large, insurers, because that's sort of where we would get the volume from. And I sort of traveled all across the world, really. I went to the US, I went to Europe, I went to the UK, where at the point I was living, I went to Hong Kong, I went to wider Asia. And I just sort of thought, like, where's the traction? And then it started to be in Asia, right? We closed AIA, which is the largest listed life insurer across the whole of Asia. We got some, other clients of the size of AIA, which I can't yet publicly talk about. We'll have a few cool announcements in the next few months on this. And the reasons for that, well, I think I can put out a few guesses. Again, it was that demand-driven growth, but I think one of the things is that the distribution value chain in Asia on insurance is very much owned by the insurance company themselves. So if you're, for example, AIA, right, you would have your own agency force that you as the insurer own. Whereas in other markets like the UK or the US or even Central Europe, right, it's a lot of divided distribution. And I'm obviously simplifying this, right? I mean, there's more complexity to it, but broadly speaking, it is more divided. So not only would you have to convince the insurer and the reinsurer, but you'd also have to convince the distributor, as well as potentially some software portals, as well as others. So less parties is one. And then, of course, from a perspective of innovation, we just feel like Asia is the growth market. And I, it's clear, right? Who's buying insurance? Middle class. So you go from there. And the insurers are really targeting that, I would say.
Absolutely. And we are also making a special edition of the podcast about Asia and Southeast Asia. And it's incredible to see the energy and the momentum, even funding rounds in the region. It's exploding. It's incredible and getting mature and more mature. So, and what are some of the regions across APAC that are the most important for you? I know that, again, you are working with large multinationals which are present in almost all countries in the region. But what has been your kind of approach to such a large region with so much complexity that can go from India to China to South Korea to Japan and also to Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we sort of have what I call, 4.5 markets in a way that we focus on. And that's really how we built it up. Now, the first one is the UK, right? So that's a market that I think we're doing quite well in, that we want to scale further up. And then we have 3 markets across Asia that are sort of our priority, right? And they go at no particular order of importance, but to go through them. The first one is what we call Southeast Asia and multinationals. So these would be like sort of like the multinationals would be sort of the AIA types where, you may have that relationship with their group office in Hong Kong or Singapore, but then they will go and say, okay, well, this business unit, like, I don't know, Korea wants to launch, or I don't know, making this up. I mean, this is not AIA specific, just anyone, right? Like now maybe Vietnam wants to launch, or they want to launch, or whatever, right? And that is one of the sort of areas, as well as the wider Southeast Asian market. So that's one pillar, right? The next pillar, the second pillar is India. So for us, India is a sort of dream come true market because as I explained our product at the beginning, right, we simplify the onboarding journey. Now, in a country like the UK, that simplification is to simplify the questionnaire. But in India, actually, 50 to 80% of all applications actually have to go to a paramedical exam. And that costs a lot of money, and it's just a pain for every single person. So there specifically, not only are we a increase in conversion and sort of like friction reducing our service, but we also cut a lot of cost for our clients. So that is a big market. And of course, huge rising middle class, meaning a lot of people are going to buy life and health insurance. And, you know, that means a lot of assessments, plus it's obviously a billion plus population. So, so that's definitely one that we want to focus quite a lot on. So that's the second one. The third one is China. So Greater China, right? So we've got an office in Shanghai, we've got an office in Hong Kong, and building upon the momentum that we have there. That's the third one. So the fourth one. And then the half one is we also have I wouldn't say office, but we have a person in Japan as well. That's helping us develop this market as well. And then lastly, outside of all of those sort of 4 priority markets that we target, we then also have what we call sort of low-hanging fruit clients outside. So we have a client in South Africa, we have a few clients in the US, and these ones we're developing next to it, so that if we come to our next round, we could potentially make an argument of saying, okay, we're quite big in the UK now, quite big in Asia, but you know, maybe it's now time to scale in, I don't know, South Africa or US or whatever clients we already have a foot in the door.
Exactly. So yeah, that's really a great point. Having, of course, this kind of other segment open to, as you said, you decided to go into the APAC region because there was demand and traction coming from there, not because you just wanted to go there. There was an opportunity that was validated, right? So I think that's a good point. So it seems that in other way you keep open to what the market is telling you. So if there are other markets that are asking for your services, you would consider if it starts repeating again and again, they that demand, right?
Well, I guess it depends a little bit, right? I mean, in the first phase of our company, yes, because remember, right? In the first phase, it was for us just proving our product market fit, right? And going into it and actually getting some clients and having those clients see value out of our product. And there, you know, as I said, right, I was flying around the world trying to get those first few clients. Now we're at a different stage, right? Now we're at a stage where we're live with some, you know, big clients. You know, we've raised 23 million or so forth, and it's right now it's about scaling, right? So if someone would come to me and say, hey, we have a big opportunity in Brazil, of course, if you're going to give us 5 million in ARR, we'll still do it. But if you know, but if it's just sort of like a deal, then you know, we would look at that and we would see, do we need to do that? Is that fitting in our roadmap? Is that fitting in our priorities? How much is it going to take us to actually set up in Brazil? Because now we've identified those 4.5 key pillars where we have success in and where we just need to scale up. So the focus now is really going to be rock solid on those 4. With some other ones around, just in case, you know, like for our story for our next round, that, you know, we have growth potentials, but those 4 is where we spend all our effort, because right now it's not about proving our product market fit. It's not about finding, well, it's always about finding clients, but it's not about like proving all of that stuff. It's about scaling up from what we've now proven, which is that our product works and it delivers benefits to our clients.
Right. And it's interesting to see the focus, because it's clearly the insurance industry, then it's clearly enterprise insurance. So the size of companies is enterprise. And then that's why we are discussing much more the geography, because both the size of the company and the industry is quite clear in your business model. And I think that what you are saying is also, especially now focusing on the APAC and excluding Japan as this half market, let's say, so talking about Southeast Asia, India, and China, as you were saying, we might have different speeds of scale, right? And maybe on the B round or in the C round, you will be focusing much more in one of those regions, also according to the traction that you are seeing and the potential of growth.
Yeah, that's correct. I think, you know, broadly speaking, it has to be said that insurance industry is a slow industry, right? So you're having long sales cycles and it takes time to get things done, which is a negative in the sales, but it's a positive in the retention, because it also means that your competitors will very likely not kick you out as long as you don't properly mess up. You know, which is a positive out of it. But in terms of timelines and which markets to prioritize, I mean, again, we've sort of built ourselves a brand now, specifically in Asia and the UK. There's a lot of like in the insurance circle, a lot, but there's a little bit of, I guess, knowledge about us now, and sort of like a growing recognition that digital underwriting is really, happening now, given the clients that we signed up. So I think the momentum will really take on. I don't see a big difference between the countries. Honestly, not too much. Not really that much. I mean, it depends more on the relationship that you have and the use case that you have with the clients. If you have a really good use case and a really good relationship, it will just go quicker. But whether you have that in Vietnam, in UK, or in Singapore, we haven't seen a massive difference there.
Right. And it's interesting what you said. For the ones who are listening, it might apply to other business models and to any lessons. It's the focus, for instance, in Southeast Asia, in Singapore being usually the headquarters of these large multinational companies. And from Singapore and from the relationship with the client, they will ask, we want to make it available in a specific market in the region, for instance, talking about Singapore, so across Southeast Asia. So then we launch the product with the clients in Vietnam or in Indonesia or in Malaysia, Thailand, etc. So it helps to focus that the majority of the clients' headquarters are in Singapore, or as you said, in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of very, I guess, important points here that you bring up. I think the first one, and this one is very specific to my industry, insurance, right? So this may not be applicable to other listeners, but for us, right, we have sort of two types of clients, right? We have the big multinationals and then the local players. Our target definitely is, in the first case, the big multinationals. So these are, your AIAs, your, Prudential, Avivas, those types of ones, right? And there, yes, they would usually have their group headquarter or Asia headquarter in, always either Hong Kong or Singapore.
Exactly.
A little bit more in Hong Kong, but now with COVID, who knows how that's going to, go. I definitely see a lot of people moving to Singapore, including myself. But certainly, those who develop that relationship with the group. But then it's very important to say that the group can't force anything, right? The business units, the markets, like the individual market that I don't know, AI Korea or Prudential Hong Kong or AXA Spain or whatever the company is, right? They would be the one that are the real decision maker. So the group can go in and say, hey, we like it, we validated it, and then the group, and then the business unit will say, maybe Korea will say yes, maybe India will say no, maybe China will say maybe in 6 months, and that's what you'll have to follow. So that's the first one. But, to be honest, most of the time, if the group, likes it, it means there's something behind it, and they obviously have a lot of sway internally, so they can then pitch it for you properly. And we found a lot of success personally in convincing the group, and then having the group sort of bring us across the markets, and then finding, like 4 or 5 markets that you want to go into with that particular company. So that's the first one. And then obviously you have the the local player. So you may have like a insurer in Vietnam or something like that, that's launching out with us. And we do have a few of those clients, but they're less strategic for us because, of course, they're not as big in size, but they can prove a big point for us in sort of growing in a market. So for example, if we have the first client in Vietnam, then maybe getting a few domestic players on top is helpful for us to sort of get more of the local penetration. And then the second point is, but this is very, very specific to insurance. I don't know how that is outside. I would imagine it to be similar with banking, I guess, and a few other of these industries. But again, I don't have that knowledge there, I'm afraid. The other thing I just wanted to say here, which I think is very important, is actually the face-to-face aspect, because it is important to be in those cities or countries. Because of the fact that you can see these people face to face, and you can interact with them, you can speak with them. And in my very short experience, I'm a very unexperienced guy, but in my very short experience, I've seen that make a ton of a difference, to be able to go to a client and just say, I always joke that quarantines were really good for my business, because all I do is this job. I just, I love what I do. I really want to make a success out of this. So I didn't care going into quarantine. And so every time I came to a client, they were like they're like, wow, you go through like 21 days of quarantine just to come see us. And there was many times where that actually sped up deals just because they were like, oh, wow, I mean, that's really cool that a supplier makes that.
Thank you. Yeah.
and so I think face-to-face is very important, even if it just shows that you're there for your clients and you're in the region.
And especially in Asia, right? For the ones who have less experience in Asia, it makes, of course, even in Europe and in the US, but I'd say in Europe it's more important than in the US. But in Asia, it's a total different world in that sense. It's much more important than in Europe and than in the US, being in person, right?
100%. Yeah, you especially in Asia, you have to go out for dinners. You have to have, because I think and it's a nice thing because like you're becoming more friends, I think, with your clients and partners than you would be in the West. I mean, that's one of my key observations. And again, I have to make this disclaimer. I am learning a lot myself, right? It's a lot of it is new to me as well. But that's one of the key differences I found. I would do much more sort of outside of work stuff with my clients. I would even call friends now in Asia compared to what I would do with my clients in other areas. So yeah, that personal aspect to it is very important in Asia. I agree.
Right. So and how to build a brand? So coming from the UK, getting your first clients. I know that the same happens in the UK than Europe when you are starting up, but going into a different region, as you said, that you don't know much in the beginning, and building the team, attracting the team to join you, attracting the customers, etc. So, what were some of your lessons learned building the brand in the APAC region for Qumata?
Yeah. So the first thing to say is, we didn't so much focus on our brand per se, but rather focus on our enterprise sales. Because again, when you talk about our brand, right, what we did a lot of the times is word of mouth. Because, so for example, we announce a big deal with a big insurer or a big deal with a big reinsurer. The insurance industry is very small, so it travels around. And because we started in Asia, that's where most of the word traveled around about us. And now I think, hopefully, nobody says this is wrong. I really hope that's the case. But I think, honestly speaking, if you go into Asia and you talk about sort of like data-driven underwriting, the name Qumata would probably be are not the only one, but definitely one of the top ones. I think that clients would mention. And I think the way that we built that up is really by actually just focusing on making sales and getting clients in the door and actually convincing people to work with us. But that was the first stage. That was our what I call the startup phase, right? Where we didn't have huge budgets for anything, and we just had to make sure that we started to get revenue and then start to prove our growth story. Mm-hmm. But now we're in a different situation where we're in what I call the scale up phase, right? Where we have some clients, we have revenue, but it's about growing from the base that we have, right, and scaling up. And I think that's where we start to now put a lot of effort on actually how do we develop our brand, right? And that be by doing podcasts, right? Or be that by speaking at events, or be that by in Asia, maybe doing some more personal things like, an event or a dinner or and so forth. But again, I think branding is a bit hard for me to talk about just because of the fact that I think being a B2B company, we focus a lot on just making sales and have the word travel around. And now we've sort of hired a professional team that is taking care of our marketing and really build our brand outside of just the selling part of it.
Got it. That's a good point. And in terms of your approach into talent, do you kind of have offices in some cities? Are you remote? Are you in hybrid mode? So what has been your approach in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a very topical question. I always don't really know how best to answer this because I'm still stuck in my head on what the pros and cons are. I mean, right now, our company, we offer full remote working with sort of, a laxed requirement to come in 1 or 2 days a week, right? And look, if someone doesn't do it for 1 week, we're not going to kill them, but I think, I don't know. I mean, I definitely see the benefits of working from home. As you can see, I'm working from home, right? And I'm working from home most of the time. I've been feeling that I've been getting so much more productive working from home. I mean, it's crazy. I can just fit in 10 meetings a day now. You know, it's crazy. And I don't have to have like half an hour meeting and then half an hour for travel to the office, to the next of the client's office. And then, no, I can just half an hour, you know, we have a 45 minutes, you know, slot straight away after I have my next meeting. You know, I don't have to do anything. That's great. But then on the negative side of things, and I think this works great, like me and my co-founder or me and my core team that worked together for years now, right? But then now in that scale up phase, we're hiring a lot more people. And I think that's where the problem comes in, because if you haven't met them, you haven't built that relationship, because let's be real, right? Like work is like most of our life, quite honestly, right? Even if you're not if you're an entrepreneur, 100% of your life. But if you're not an entrepreneur, even then it's like, I don't know the figure, but I would assume like 50-60% of your life. So like, do you want to spend 50-60% of your life talking over FaceTime or Zoom? Probably not, right? You'd want to see that person. You'd want to have a drink with them. You want to go for a dinner with them. You want to just make a joke, you know, with them and not just talk about work. And I think that's the important part about face-to-face. So I think having a hybrid model where it allows you to meet people for fun activities, do some stuff together and bond, and then do the day-to-day job in an efficient home working way where you can have that meeting after meeting. That I think is the right approach, and that's what we're trying to do in Qumata. But I think the last point to say about how we do it in Qumata is we trust our employees a lot, right? So if someone really feels like how they work best is fully remote, or how they work best is fully in an office, then it's them. They know it best. It's not for me to tell them how to do it. I know how I work best, but someone else might work differently best. And it's allowing people to give them the opportunity to work how they want. Same way we give them the opportunity to live how they want, right? We should give them the opportunity to work how they want.
Love it. And for the ones who wants to follow an hybrid model and go to the office kind of 1 or 2 days per week, so will you have kind of regional offices or for each of the markets that you mentioned before?
Yeah, correct. So we have a office in London. So we have 2 small floors in near Wall Street, which we used to go a lot, and then not at all during the first times of COVID, and now it's sort of like full once or twice a week. We have an office in Hong Kong, we have an office in Shanghai, and we're now opening an office in Singapore and Mumbai. We don't have one in Japan just because it's it's just one person. But yeah, that's the current situation.
Exactly, got it. So, and let's go into, of course, always a very interesting topic, which are the fundraising lessons. And we know that the playbooks are becoming more and more complex, or we are getting less and less playbooks because the market is hot in the last, or even hotter in the last 2 years. So, what has been some of your lessons learned raising the A round?
Yeah, I think some of the lessons that I've learned is, to sort of focus a lot on, I guess, what you need, right? So, and to focus a lot also on the investors that can help you to get where you need. So, we had a fantastic bunch of investors in our last round and the rounds before, and I think that's really helped me to develop as a leader, as a CEO, focus me on the right things. Maybe it has been specifically helpful for me because of who I am and because of my somewhat lack of experience in some aspects. So I think that's been really helpful, having a partner from one of these venture firms, MMC, Ollie, who's really helped me to focus on the areas that I need to focus, meaning hitting our ARR figures and hitting our client targets and all this kind of stuff, and hitting product excellence and so forth. So I think one of the real big targets is to be really clear on who you want as your investors. But actually, I think a lot of the times, and sorry, I'm going to be a little bit, I don't know if you can call it controversial, but my opinion always is, I always think like when I say choose the investors, very, very carefully, I actually don't mean what they can offer you. because honestly, sometimes I don't get it. A lot of these VCs say, oh, they can offer this and that and this and that. And that's nice, but let's just be real, right? What you want from them is the money and the experience. You know, those are the two things you really want. Everything else, whether they give you a bit of, you know, Amazon credit or whatnot, okay, that's great, but that's not why I'm going to choose that you as an investor. So obviously, then, if you look at these other two parts, what you really care about is sort of the help that they can give you, the experience they can give you, and the money. Or the money is obviously one that's just like, do they give it or not? So if they give it, yes, great. And then if you have a few investors, right? I think the only thing, really, in my opinion, the only thing you should look at is how do you get along with the guy or the girl who's going to be on your board, you know, the partner. That's it, right? And if you have a great relationship with that person, then you're going to have a great time. If you have a bad relationship, you're going to have a horrible time. So I think it sometimes gets a bit overcomplicated what to look for. And again, look, I don't want to sound here like I'm a fundraising guru. You know, I've only raised the seed in a Series A. So, you know, there's a lot that I still have to learn myself. But if you want to, from my limited knowledge and my limited expertise, I think that's really a core thing. Don't overthink about like who to choose or whatnot. Just look at, do they want to give you the money, and who's the partner that is going to be on your board, and do you get along with them? I think those are the key points.
Right. And it's, again, focusing on nurturing a relationship with that person will allow you to understand if that person will help you during the path or not, right? Because as you said, there is also a lot of investors that will pitch you, that they will help you out. But at the end of the day, maybe when you need the help might not come. And sometimes it's not because they don't want, it's because they don't have enough time to serve the entire portfolio. So it's very important to do your due diligence on making sure that that member of that will join the board will be available to help you out and will have the experience to help you out, right?
Of course, but it's like any human relationship, right? I always put like, I have these 3 examples I always run for, right? Like finding your investor or your board members, that's one. Hiring top talent, executive teams and below. And, you know, finding a wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you're into, right? It's the same thing, right? Ultimately, you're looking for someone that you can get along with and that can help you in getting to your objectives and their objectives, right? Where your objectives align, and you have incentives to basically help each other out to get ahead in life, ultimately, right? And I think with all of that, yes, you have to do your due diligence, right? You have to do diligence on your board members, on your employees before you hire them. And, you know, I would recommend also on your wife.
The dating stage, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, right? Like the dating stage. So, but, right? But I think it's important to also like not, you have to take a leap at some point. Right, like you just have to, right? You can't you can't overanalyze everything, and I think accepting that is important, because you know, as long, you know, it's fine. You know, I've made hiring mistakes and I've made great hires, right? And you know, and recognizing the great ones and recognizing the not so great ones, and working on how to improve the not so great ones, and try to, you know, align each other better, and really giving all the support that you can to the good ones. I think that is the core. The core about choosing your investors, hiring employees, or whatever other, you know, relationship in your life you may have, be that personal or professional.
Right, absolutely, and that's definitely one of the most important skills when scaling up is really recruiting, right? Because sales, there is a skill that you need to command very early on, because in the beginning it's almost ourselves that needs to prove to the world that what we are trying to do makes sense and that can add value to them. But later on, it's really attracting those people in different areas of the business, and that's a very important skill to train, let's say, and to improve. Great. So we are coming to the final questions of the show, and some of my favorite ones, which is, if you would have the opportunity to have a coffee with yourself at the beginning of Qumata Group in 2017, what advice would you offer to your younger self?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think one of the things that I would say is, no, the English word is going to lack me, but you know, these sayings that everybody sort of says, right? Like, give you one example. remember, like when I started out, like I didn't have particularly much experience, so please ignore my ignorance in this topic. But everybody was telling like team is number one, but like everybody said it. Everybody said it. And at the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, if everybody says it, surely there's like some blah blah, right? Every book that I read said it, blah blah blah. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. Like let's just make sales. My biggest learning was that yes, 100% team is the most important thing. You hire a great team, and as you say before, right? That's the difference between startup and scale up. Startup, you can do all yourself. Scale up, you have to rely on people. And so my big advice to myself is sort of to really, 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 if everybody says it, if these are these topics like team is everything, or, like focus on sales rather than raising money. These are sort of the things that everybody says, they're really true. If everybody says it, they're true. And just don't think about them and just listen to them. I think that's one of the key advice.
Love it. And what are you the most proud of on your journey so far?
I think two things. I think the first thing is we've really have started to move an industry. I won't say we have moved an industry yet, but we've really started to. And what we're doing is quite tough because we're working with like huge risk adverse, multi tens of $billion insurance companies. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the core of what they do, which is to change how they price risk, right? And so it's a really tough thing to modernize, but we found a product that really helps and that really drives ROI. And I'm really proud of really having moved that now. I think, things are really, never been as busy as I'm now. Things are really moving, we've got a lot of clients on board. We've raised a decent amount of money. So that's what I'm really proud of having come to where we've come to now with just pure perseverance, a vision, and a lot of hard but smart work. And then the second thing is I'm really proud of the team we've built. Actually, I'm really surprised how the hell these people all joined me on this journey. I always like if I listen to myself, I'd be like, oh damn, no. but no, we've got some amazing, really senior, experienced, people that have transformed the business and that are 10 times smarter than me, and being able to have recruited those people, being able to have convinced those people to join me on this journey, I think is probably one of the proudest things of my limited career so far.
Amazing. Worst advice ever received?
Worst advice ever received? Probably not to follow your ambitions, and just to do what to stay in your comfort zone. Yeah, I think that's probably a one that you hear quite a lot. But I think that's sort of like, if you hear that as an entrepreneur, you're always like, yeah, no. Thank you, but no.
I will prove you wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Favorite business book?
Favorite business book? Well, actually, I really like. I don't know if this is a business book, but
it can be non-business as well. No worries.
Yeah, so basically, I started reading Ray Dalio's Principles, and that was great. But then recently, I've read the second one, which is Ray Dalio's. God, I'm going to murder. I think the title is like Principles of How to Deal with a Changing World Order. It's not directly business, but it's more like politics around.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. That story is, like basically how empires basically grow and then dissolve. It's
I need to read that one. Okay.
And then you can see some of my collection here. So
exactly.
A couple of good ones.
And to wrap up, the favorite movie or series that you like to watch?
House of Cards. House of Cards is my all-time favorite. I don't know why. I just love House of Cards.
That's amazing. Any final remarks that you'd like to share before we go?
No, just thank you very much for having me. It's really been a pleasure talking with you, and I hope your listeners found this interesting or at least somewhat helpful, and
Absolutely.
hopefully continue the discussion.
My pleasure, Lucas. Thanks so much for making the time and for joining us. And of course, you are invited to come when you get your B round to share how to go from A to B, and at any time, because the experience of the ones who are in the field doing the stuff always helps the peers to make the life of their life a little bit easier scaling up. So to our community, thanks for being on that side. As you see, we keep doing our best to bring you the best of the best and to make your life a little bit easier scaling up. See you soon and keep scaling.